And now for the first in a new series in which Ben Fogle explores the often turbulent history of some of our more spectacular, yet least known, countryside castles.
Beeston Castle. It towers 500 feet above the Cheshire Plains. It's been here since the Bronze Age, and it may have been used by the Romans, but no one's really sure. The castle you see now was built along Middle Eastern lines in the 13th century, but just 100 years later, it was redundant. But with the outbreak of the Civil War, the castle was given a new role. But first, let's go back a bit in time, about 240 million years. Just how did a crag like this come to be left standing proud in the middle of the Cheshire Plain? The rock is wind-blown sandstone, but the top capping is much harder and was able to withstand the erosion of the Ice Age. So who actually built this castle?
It was built by the 6th Earl of Chester, Ranulph de Blunderville. And basically
Ranulph de Blunderville?
Yes.
That's a good name.
He went on the Crusades, and he saw the way the castles had been designed over in places like Syria, using the natural advantages of things like cliffs and rocks. Came back and decided this would be a good spot.
So did Ranulph actually ever live here?
No, he didn't. Nobody actually lived here. It was more of a fortress. It was a garrison, would have held probably about 50 to 80 men.
Only the gatehouses and some of the towers were habitable, so the garrison lived in simple, lean-to timber buildings against the walls. Their main purpose was to fight off guerrilla raids from North Wales. Wow, that is quite a walk up. You're obviously used to it. So how high are we here?
500 feet.
Phew, it is a spectacular view, isn't it?
It's amazing, isn't it?
So would this have been a moat below us?
Well, it wasn't filled with water, it was a dry ditch, but originally it wasn't even a ditch because the rock out there was dug out to make the castle.
Oh, how would they have done that?
Well, it's a feat of medieval engineering, basically with the most basic tools they had: hammer, chocks, pickaxes.
Look at that crag. It seems impossible to think that anyone could scale that. But they did, during the Civil War, when Captain Thomas Stanford actually managed to climb that whole thing and persuaded the entire garrison to surrender. So it just seems amazing to me that Captain Thomas Stanford and just a handful of men could have scaled that enormous cliff and defeated the whole garrison here. I mean, how did he do it?
Well, the answer is he probably didn't. It's a lovely story, and it's a story that has credence and is repeated in the 18th, 19th centuries, that he scaled the sheer cliffs. It's probably false. If we look at contemporary accounts of what happened on the night of 12th, 13th December 43, he probably didn't attack here. He attacked the outer ward, the lower ward first of all, where the walls are much lower. The defenders, Steele, was distracted. The royalists had colleagues who mounted a diversionary attack on the outer, lower gatehouse, and this small group of men under Sandford got over the much lower wall of the outer ward, where it said they met no resistance, only stones. They crept into the inner ward, probably deserted, and that's how they took it. The story of the great dramatic cliff rise is probably not true.
Oh, I want it to be true.
Oh, well, sorry. There's myths and truth. Steele entertained the royalist commander Sandford in his quarters down in the lower gatehouse, entertained him to dinner, and he sent up beer and food up to the royalist group who are up here in the upper ward. And that really enraged the parliamentarians. Steele was taken prisoner. He was marched off to Nantwich, and apparently he had to be kept guard because the soldiers at Nantwich wanted to lynch him.
Sure, they must have been so annoyed.
Absolutely, to lose this stronghold. In fact, he did face a formal trial, a court-martial. He was condemned for cowardice for giving up this castle, and he was shot outside Nantwich Church. The parliamentary press, the parliamentary newspapers, add a further twist to it. As well as condemning him for what he did here at Beeston, they also alleged that he was a womanizer, that he had various illicit affairs with women in and around Nantwich. And so that adds a further level of moral, sinful condemnation to the military shortcomings of poor old Thomas Steele.
The royalists were soon under siege themselves. They held out for 11 months, but by the 16th of November 1645, they were starved into surrender. 1 piece of turkey pie, 2 biscuits, a live peacock and a peahen was the only food left in the castle. Well, they may have run out of food, but with a well 370 feet deep, they certainly didn't run out of water. And according to some people, this may contain more than just water. Now, this is an amazing thing. I mean, how did they build this?
Again, another feat of medieval engineering. Must have taken a lot of manpower, and it was just with the most basic tools that they had.
So what are these stories about hidden treasure?
Richard II's treasure. Well, when he was fleeing from England to Ireland, he wanted somewhere safe to deposit it. And a legend has it, it went down the well. It's never been found, and it'd be worth a great deal of money by today's standards.
This is actually one of the biggest castles according to acreage, and although no one's actually ever lived here, it's home to foxes, badgers, and all sorts of wildlife. But most spectacular of all are a pair of peregrine falcons. They're very rare in England, but these two have nested on the castle crag for 14 years. Peregrines are so rare that to prevent theft of their eggs, a 24-hour watch is kept over the nest during the spring.
I do a night shift, which sometimes is a bit daunting if you go into the castle after whoever's up there. But
quite scary up there.
It can be, yes. But we've got used to it over the years, and it's, we have less and less people trying to steal them now.
So that's quite amazing that people would try and steal eggs from a cliff face like that.
They climb down, with no ropes or anything. They literally just come over the top and climb down.
Have you given them names?
No, not really. But they are part of the family now, definitely. You wake up in the morning to hear them, you think, they're all right, they're still here. So
and obviously they're part of the castle.
Definitely part of the castle, and it is the most fantastic spot for them.
After the Civil War, the castle passed into the ownership of Sir Hugh Beeston, but he found it was just a drafty white elephant.
Cromwell ordered that it be slighted. Basically, the defences...
Slighted
is when they blow...
Slashed a bit.
Yes, blown up the defences, so it couldn't be used against them again, basically. So all this was destroyed with bombs and cannon, and later on the Victorians quarried it for the stone.
Once the locals had helped themselves to the stonework, all that was left was a picturesque ruin. The tourists arrived, and the rest, as they say, is history.